1. How do oil companies figure out where to build gas stations? She thought there was a gas bubble underground that they would tap into and run a line straight to the pump. She worked for Chevron. 2. He asked why I always made sure to use the bathroom after sex, since I tend to get UTIs, which was fine until I explained it to him, backed up by my regular doctor and gynecologist. He argued with me about it and kept fighting me for almost a week until he Googled it and read like 3 different articles before reluctantly accepting that peeing after sex can help reduce the risk. I still have no idea what his issue with it was. 3. I wasn't really dating this guy, but at Sonic, "Hi, can I get a slushie?" Worker: "Sure. What flavor?" "You know, a slushie." Worker: "Yes, but what flavor would you like?" "I just want a slushie, a regular slushie." Worker: "Okay, but..." "Sure, a regular slushie." The order comes out, he takes a sip and says, "I think this is just ice. It has no flavor?" I thought it was hilarious that they just gave him a plain slushie instead of defaulting to cherry or something. I could have helped clarify while he was ordering, but I was too shocked to speak. 4. When he ran out of gas while waiting in line at Starbucks, right across from the gas station. I told him to get gas first since his car was low, but he really needed that iced caramel macchiato. I asked why he didn't listen to me, and he said, "I thought I could make it." He ended up pushing the car through the drive-thru, getting his coffee while doing so, then parked the car and called a tow to take it home, instead of just going to the gas station across the street. No, he didn't get any gas that day. He waited for his dad to bring him 3 gallons of gas when he got off work. I refused to enable that nonsense. ETA. I fell asleep after commenting, "I feel like I'm in the twilight zone with all these responses. Thanks for the reward." Yes, I'm still with him. He's a space case, but so am I, just not to that extent, LOL. I still haven't let him forget that day, and he now knows to get gas first, every time. The funniest part was when he didn't remember he had a gas canister in his trunk. He told me he towed the car home instead of going to the gas station because he was too embarrassed. I asked why he still pushed his car through the Starbucks drive-thru, and he said, "I had enough stars for a free drink. I was going to use the extra money for gas." My brain broke for a second because he uses the preloaded Starbucks app. How was he going to use $7 from the app at a Chevron? He still hasn't answered me, and it's been 2 years. Edit 2. I showed him this, and he flipped me off, saying that if this makes me famous, I owe him royalties, LOL. 5. After a year and a half of dating, he told me that the world is flat. We live in a dome, the sky is a projection, and all the experiments proving the Earth is round are logically flawed. He knew me and my dad have fancy telescopes, do astrophotography, and stargaze together on our roof. Wasted my time. 6. I was dating a guy, and we worked together on opposite shifts. I came in for turnover, and he told me he couldn't get into the computer in the office because the password on the sticky note didn't work. The sticky note clearly said, "Login XYZ, password XYZ." I thought that was weird because I had used it just the night before. I went to the computer, typed in the password, and boom, I was logged in. I asked him what he was entering, and he said, "Password XYZ, like it says on the sticky note." Sweetie, the password is just XYZ, not password : XYZ. Not his brightest moment. And the best part is, he did this for several days and thought everyone was having the same issue. 7. I was in a long-term relationship with a girl while in grad school, and we shared a studio apartment. One winter evening, I planned to stay late at the library to work, but I was so tired, I decided to go home early. When I opened the door, I was hit with a strong smell of gas. Turns out, she thought the apartment was too cold and figured leaving the oven door open while it was on would warm the place. Did I mention the windows were completely shut and locked? I opened the windows, got her out of the apartment, and called building management. She didn't understand the seriousness until I explained she could have died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Then she told me she planned on lighting some candles. We broke up a few months later. 8. It was a clear, sunny day, and we were lying on the beach, trying to tan. The UV level wasn't too high, but after an hour she decided that in order to speed up our tanning, we had to move much further down the beach to get closer to the sun, since that's where it was. 9. She had a new telescope and thought it would be cute to stargaze after our date one night. I don't remember all the details, but at some point, I joked that we're stuck together on this big ball in space. She looked through the telescope again and said, "So, you believe that, huh?" I just stared at her because I was afraid of where the conversation would go. Anyway, happy to report we didn't last long. Did you know that there's actually a lot of evidence that the Earth probably isn't round? 10. He was shocked to learn that he couldn't pick up our car rental, which was under my name, using my credit card because they always let me use my dad's card when we were on family trips. I had to explain that he and his dad had the same first and last name. 11. I was going into anaphylactic shock at a restaurant due to an unknown allergy. My throat was closing up, and I was swelling up so much I could barely breathe. He asked if I wanted to go outside to get some air. We were sitting on the patio. 12. I had an ex who literally called me to ask how to cook pasta from a box, and then asked what equipment he needed. He was 35. I was also the idiot for dating him. 13. I was in the passenger seat of my ex-girlfriend's car. We were 22 at the time. And while driving, I opened the glove compartment to put something in. She screamed, "What the fuck are you doing?" I asked what was wrong. Apparently, as a kid, she'd been told that opening the glove compartment while the car was moving would damage the engine. She was 22 and still believed that. 14. When she said she thought we could drive to Hawaii because it looked close on a map, and then asked how fish breathe under ice. She was really pretty. 15. I was dating this girl in the early 2000s, and during a federal election, she read the campaign signs and said, "Wow, no one's voting for Bush." We lived in Canada. 16. She met a deaf person at her job one day and kept saying, "Death person." I gently corrected her, and World War III broke out. 17. My husband would probably say the first time I made him laugh was when he asked me the time, and I said, "Time to get a sundial." He replied, "It's nighttime." I said, "So, shine a flashlight on it." 18. She asked me if she had to divorce her first husband before we could get married. 19. The guy I was dating turned out to be the worst kind of know-it-all because his facts were mostly wrong. He told me not to tell him that something wasn't true because he didn't like it. A few days later, we were at dinner, talking about human organs when the topic of the stomach's pH came up. I mentioned that the pH of the stomach is about 3. He smiled condescendingly and said, "The pH of the stomach is 10. He said it so definitively that I stopped mid-sentence. I tried to politely suggest he might have misunderstood or that a teacher had made an error, but he insisted I was wrong. I asked him to look it up because I was a biologist and pretty confident in my education. He did, and I was right. He still believed he was right. When we broke up, one of his complaints was, "I think you think I'm stupid." In reality, it was because he was wrong and totally confident in his mistake. 20. I didn't date this guy. I worked with him. He was a self-proclaimed master electrician. He would say, "Be Pacific when you talk." We told him the word was specific. He insisted, It's Pacific because of the ocean. We showed him online that specific was correct, but he said, anyone can fake an internet article. It was on Wikipedia. He also had a fiancée who ended up in the hospital for months, and he never visited her. When I, a woman, asked him why, he said, she was on meds and wouldn't even know I was there. She wasn't in a coma. She had had a large tumor removed and had complications. She was awake most of the time. The engagement ended when she left the hospital. 21. What kind of bird is a ham? Was hard to ignore. 22. Listening to her openly say that Jesus wasn't Jewish and was raised Catholic. 23rd. Senior year of high school, I had been offered a full-ride scholarship for athletics. My girlfriend at the time was always annoyed by how much time I spent on my sport. I explained that, without it, I might not be able to afford college, and if I did, I'd be in debt. The scholarship was life-changing. She got upset when I called it that and demanded I quit my sport so we could hang out more. We broke up about 90 seconds later. I mentioned that I love stargazing during camping trips because the sky gets dark enough to see the Milky Way. He told me that wasn't possible because we're in the Milky Way. He also didn't believe in huckleberries. When I mentioned picking them on a hike, he had to interrupt to tell me they didn't exist. What was remarkable was how confidently he argued with me, wrongly, and then got mad at me when I didn't agree with him. 25. I told him I had to leave in 1.5 hours. He said that was oddly specific and that I should round up to 2 hours instead of saying 1 hour and 50 minutes. I corrected him, saying I had to leave in 1 hour and 30 minutes, and he insisted that was 1.3 hours. 26. She seemed confused about the difference between flamingos and penguins, but insisted neither of them were real because she'd never seen them in Alaska.